There, yeah, there goes. Yep, the red light's on.
All right.
Okay. Well, this is new digital mixer. You gonna get yourself in here and learn a little too, just in case?
Absolutely.
All right. It's not that much different than an analog in the sense that a lot of the functions are still the same. It just gives you a lot more functionality. And we kind of did a little bit of the iPad app a little bit earlier, so you kind of look at that separately. All your channels are basically on the top layer. Everything has got a label on it. At this point, you guys have the ability to change these labels either through the iPad app, or if you go into your screen display here where it says inputs and VCAs, you select a channel. The input name will be up there right now. It says channel 12. You could enter that, backspace it, type in what you want, and hit apply. And that would change the name. Okay. So pretty easy to do from there. This is your menu screen. You can get into a lot of different areas through here, your inputs and that type of thing. A lot of it you probably won't use to start with. You do have a cue list. So this is kind of a big deal with selling points. So if you're in your main menu, come way over here, right above the left and right master output, there's a cue list, and that's where you store your settings. Right now I have one that just says default. So if we just wanted to say save something that looks like this, I like what I have, I hit store. It'll be an unnamed snapshot. You can go back in and edit that cue, and you could delete that, rename it, hit apply, and you'll be back there. So then you have your cue list. So now if I wanted to go back to my default, so all you have to do is highlight it, tap down on this adjust button, it'll recall your setting.
Okay.
And if you have a whole bunch of them, you can actually just hit your next button. It'll go right to the next one. Use that in theaters a lot.
Okay.
I'm just going to get rid of this one because we don't need it. There. Okay. So that'll be a useful tool because you can set up your Sunday mornings and your weddings, and like I said, you have the Hispanic service, that kind of thing, and you can have that. Just don't overwrite your settings with something that you've done that you don't want to necessarily save.
Right.
When you hit an update, it takes a picture of every setting in the entire mixer. Monitors, equalization, levels, outputs, everything. So it's just a snapshot in time. Okay? In order to adjust a channel, you hit your select button. Then this whole panel here has your bass and treble, your compression, your input gain, everything is correlated to that independent channel.
Okay.
So the basics that are the same with every other mixing board on here are going to be your 48 volts phantom power, if you want to select that on a microphone channel for condenser microphones and things of that nature. Your input trim, it's the same as the old board, it's just how much input's coming in. You can adjust that for the needs of the sound channel. This next one, I don't think the other one had it, is a big deal. In my opinion, it's the HPF, it's called high pass filter. This gives you the ability to filter out low frequencies out of microphones, so they're just not there, so less feedback problems. Almost on every vocal mic, I will set that at 100 hertz, or at the 100 level. That takes out all the low frequency stuff so that you don't get that kind of sound that you get on a feedback loop from low, because there's nothing in there that you need. Now, like on a keyboard, I've got it way down because you do need the lower registry on that. Same with the piano. I actually have it off on the piano. Of course, bass guitar, you just have it off. Your guitar, you probably do want it on a little bit. So that's a very useful tool right there.
Okay.
Gate is a setting that you're gonna need to play with. I'm not gonna set any of it. That literally tells the mic to shut off when someone's not using it or there's not enough volume into it. So if you have a mic that's up there and it doesn't get used necessarily a lot, or you need a certain amount of volume to where it kicks in, you can set that gate so it basically is off while no one's using it. That helps, because the less amount of mics you have on stage, the better off you are. It doesn't pick up as much noise. So that's something you kind of have to think, it's hard to just go through that in this tutorial we're doing, but it is a very helpful tool as well. Compression, I went through that with the iPad. Very useful tool, but this is basically the same thing. It's just that you have to engage it, your ratio, how much input versus output is on there, and then this is your threshold of when it actually starts to take place. So, again, there's some really good YouTube videos on all this stuff, and the greatest thing is to sit down with it, with the microphone, and
See
try
how
it.
things change.
Yep. The ratio, I will explain a little bit better. You've got everything from a 1.7, 3.8, 4.4, all the way up to 20. What that means, for every 1 decibel, or for every 4, say you set it to, well, let's just go here. Say we set it to 5, 5 decibels. Probably really can't see that, but for every 5 decibels the level on that channel goes up, it's only going to let out on the other side to the speaker system 1 decibel. So it really keeps things in check.
Okay.
That's great if you've got an aggressive drummer or a bass player or somebody that just talks real loud or starts to sing super loud. It smooths that out a little bit so you don't get these peaks and valleys as much. So when you set that, just keep that in mind for every, whatever it is, say this one is 3, so for every 3 decibels it comes in, it allows it to be only 1 decibel louder on the other side, so
Now,
that is
I
adjustable.
was noticing that as you adjust that ratio button, it's showing up on the screen over here as well.
Yep, it'll show you that too, yep,
Okay.
yep. Oh, and then the threshold as well, yep. With all of these things, it'll do that. So even
Which
for-
helps if we have folks who trombone a little bit with their eyesight, it's magnified on the screen.
Yep, and it does it with the gate too. Let's see if it does it with that disengaged, yeah. But it does it with your gates, and your compressor,
Okay.
and your equalization, so here too. So on the compression as well, there's an attack and a release. The attack is just how fast the compressor starts to work, and then the release is how fast it releases from that
Okay.
hold time. Typically on the attack, we'll bring this down to like a 3.0 or someplace in there. We want that to be relatively fast. So just keep that in mind too. Because if it's too slow to do anything, it doesn't really do anything because it's too slow to activate.
Okay.
Again, stuff that you really just got to sit down and play with as a sound guy. Something different that the old board is this is a lot different actually. This little sheetrock. So the other one had a 4-band EQ, low, mid, high, and high. Great. It says something similar except it gives you a lot more adjustability because each one of these frequencies correlates to the knob on the left side of the frequency you're actually wanting to change. So again on the screen, say on the low mid, I want to see this number here. It's changing from 200, 300, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800, 1.8. Those are all different frequencies. So let's say 355 hertz. And then it'll go up and down. So you can select a frequency, a specific frequency that you can either boost or cut. It gives you a lot of adjustability instead of a fixed frequency like some of the other ones have. And if you really want to see what it's doing, you hit your button on the display here, EQ, and you'll actually be able to see what it's doing. So you can boost it, cut it, adjust where you're at. You can see in real time kind of where you're at. The big thing is to just trust your ears. Make sure it sounds right. But don't overdo it. I mean, if I came in and I saw something like that, I'd go, oh, something's wrong. We don't need big adjustments like that. It's more subtle stuff. Oops. And then, again, I don't know if you can really see, but within that, you have this Q on the far right side. All that does, we're going to make this drastic, but if you move that, you can see that that V changes in shape.
Wow.
So now we're taking like if we go way up here, we got a very narrow frequency band. It's taking out a very small segment of the audio. It's for fine tuning, or like if you got feedback and you want to really slice something out. Or you can really widen it out so you're just scooping, just big, like a big giant scoop of ice cream out of a pail. It's just taking a whole bunch of information out. Generally, we kind of run with things in about this neighborhood, something like that. But that does give you the width of how much frequency. You know, it's just, we got this much frequency, are you gonna take out a big chunk or a little tiny chunk? And that's all about learning the EQ and hearing and using your ears to hear what's happening. And you can, what you can do is you can rotate this back and forth. You know you wanna take something away, you can rotate this slowly back and forth until you hear the sound that is driving you crazy dissipate, get rid of it. Make any sense?
I think so.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So I kind of started with some of the complicated stuff right away, but we're just moving right across here. So again, a great way to do that is to sit down with a mic or a pre-recorded track and just play with the equalizer and hear its effects. And you go, oh, okay, now I get what that sounds like or what this frequency sounds like. So don't go by a picture or a predetermined EQ or something you saw somewhere that looked cool. Never do that. Go by your ears specifically. Just because somebody said you should always do this or do that doesn't make it so. Use your ears and trust yourself, unless you can't hear. That's a problem.
Yep.
This is your pan, left and right. That's literally what it is, left and right. Nothing more to it.
Okay.
We have everything assigned to your LR, which is your left and right output. So you can actually deselect. Now there'd be no sound coming out the front. And now there is. So you got to make sure that those are all on, and they are. But it is something you can do there.
Okay, so when a person is running this on a Sunday morning, after we've got things set, we need to make sure that LR button is lit.
And it should be lit with everything. If you go through here, that's assigned to everything.
Okay.
So unless someone specifically shuts off a channel, then he really shouldn't have to worry about it. But
Okay.
it's one of the troubleshooting spots for going, well, I'm pretty sure I should have sound. How come I don't? Make sure that is lit up with the corresponding channel. Okay? All right. The on and off, it's just literally that. That mic is on or it's off. Your volume, up and down, and that correlates to your gain, where your gain input's at. You shouldn't have to be running here, and then your gain way down here, and you shouldn't be running your mic down here, and your gain way up like that.
Okay.
We need to have a happy medium here someplace. Okay?
So right now, it looks like you would be happy around the 5 or the 0.
I say 5 to 5 is a great place to live, if you can be in that range.
Okay, so the slider's between 5 and 5.
That's
Okay.
it. It's okay to come down a little bit or here and there, but if you're constantly down here all the time, then you need to adjust up here and make this softer so you can bring this up.
Right. The gain, from what I've understood, gain is kind of like the major adjustment, and the sliders are more the fine tuning. Would that be accurate?
You could look at it that way. What it is it's just the gain input is how much signal from a mic or an instrument, how much comes into the mixer, and then this is how much goes out of the mixer.
Okay.
So one's not really more important than the other. They just need to work in unison. I always say, if you had a really big garden hose coming in and you got a big water supply, but then all of a sudden you hook it up to a tiny half-inch hose, now that water's restricted. It doesn't matter how much flow you've got coming in because it's just not going to flow out the other side. It's kind of the same with sound. If you've got a ton of input coming in, but you're barely letting it get out, it actually makes the sound worse. it doesn't have the dynamic range that it would.
Okay.
So it also, when you get this, you'll start to get hiss and noise. Same thing with this. If you've got to max out your gain because you're not getting enough in, you'll do the same thing. You'll get distortion, you'll get hiss, you'll get nasties. So I don't say one's more important than the other. They just really need to work.
In unison.
You know, it's almost like a marriage. Got to get along with each other.
Okay.
So, and don't run volumes from here. I see people will set all these the same, and then they come up here and change the volumes on stuff. That's the absolute wrong way to do it. So, just don't do that.
Okay.
And this goes all the way across. Like I said, we got stuff labeled. I will show you this. You won't need this anymore. The reverb. Don't know if you guys were using it or not, but excuse me. Check 2. I put in the reverb channel, and of course that has to be on. Check 1 2 2 1 2 check. So you can bring that up and get reverb on a particular instrument or microphone, and you bring it down, it goes away up here. Get that. Okay. Now, but it's not just magic. In order to make that happen, you have to press Effects 1, and now you assign that reverb to any of the channels that you want. I've assigned it to the white mic, right here. If this isn't turned up here while you're on Effects 1, you won't get any reverb.
Okay.
So, and you never want reverb on the pastor's headsets, the piano, you know, stuff like that. Just don't, you know. Podium mics, things
Unless
like
you're
that.
doing a production where you want him to sound like God.
Right, yep. That'd be the only other thing. Now, there is a ton of other effects stuff, units in here. We're not gonna go there. It's something you're gonna have to figure out, or we'll do another in-depth training on something like that, but
Okay.
it's too much to it. Because you have 4 different effects banks that you can add delays or choruses and things like that, so. But I thought a nice simple reverb is nice. But just think of it this way again, if you want your reverb on a mic for someone singing, hit FX1, and then just assign, and I always put it right up to 0, and just assign it to that mic, and then you'll have it. And then you just hit this again, and it goes away. So everything's color-coded on this board, which makes it really handy. Because when it's blue, it's in the effects mode. When it's green, it's in the post-fader send. When it's in the yellow, it's monitor send. It's kind of cool. So, okay, so that's the effects. Now the monitors, same thing, kind of as the effects. So everything you do has a layer to it in a sense. So here's your monitor 1. That would change. Let's say we just need.
So just monitor 1 is the little mix number 1 button on the far left-hand side.
Yeah, mix 1, mix 2, mix 3, mix 4 just correlate to monitors 1 through 4 on the stage.
Okay.
And I already tested them, all work. But if you wanted to have a mix like this for monitor 1, you set it. Okay, they're happy. You hit mix 2. You could do this. And they'd be happy. Then you go to the 4, and you got that. And you go here. And you got that.